Good afternoon, good morning, bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us for our earnings call to discuss the highlights and financials for the first half of this year. I hope everyone is well and safe today, wherever you may be taking today's call. We announced our business and financial update yesterday evening, September 20th. The press release and the first half earnings presentation can be found in the investor sections of our website. Joining me here today on this call are Dr. Iman El-Hariri, our Chief Medical Officer, together with me here in Boston, and Eric Soyer, our Chief Financial and Chief Operating Officer, dialing in from Lyon. Then switching to slide 2, and before starting, indeed, I would like to draw your attention to the disclaimer to remind you that today's calls includes forward-looking statements such as relating to the company's operations, anticipated timelines, and financials. As you know, they all involve risks and uncertainties that could cause actual timings and results to differ materially. Now switching to slide 3, the agenda for the call. I will, as usual, start with a short introduction and present the key business highlights of the year to date, and focusing on the more recent ones, the ones that occurred after our last call in May. Iman will then provide an update on the status and the progress of our 4 clinical programs to date, after which Eric will present the financial results for the first half of the year. He will also summarize the expected milestones for the coming year before we then open up the lines for Q&A. And all 3 of us will be available to answer your question afterwards. Moving to slide 4, the introduction for anyone new to the company. Here is a brief overview of Erytech. Erytech, we are the leader in red blood cell-based cancer therapeutics, as you know. Our focus is on targeting cancer cells' altered amino acid metabolism, an increasingly important and exciting area of cancer therapy. In this area, we have late-stage clinical programs, pancreatic cancer, triple-negative breast cancer, and acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And as I noted at our last call, the upcoming quarter, the fourth quarter, is truly a key quarter for Erytech, with some key inflection points for the company. We have, as you know, we have 4 clinical programs ongoing, 2 of them potentially pivotal, potentially supporting an application for regulatory approvals, and for both of them, we expect important news this quarter. More on that in a minute. Just to summarize the introduction, we are producing our product in 2 fully operational facilities, one in Lyon to serve the European market, and one in Princeton for the US market. And also in terms of shareholder base, very balanced between Europe and US, with a Euronext and a Nasdaq listing with roughly 50-50 shareholder base. And then the highlights for the year, slide 5. Again, it has been, we've made critical steps forward since our last call or the first half of the year to bring our lead product, Erytech, to patients in need, and this both in Europe and the United States. And the 4 highlights I'd like to mention, starting with Tribeca-1, of course, our phase 3 trial in second-line pancreatic cancer. The work towards the final readout is continued in full force over the summer and is continuing, and now the eyes are really on the results, which we continue to expect in the fourth quarter of this year. So Tribeca-1 is, to our knowledge, the largest clinical trial ongoing in second-line metastatic pancreatic cancer, and has the potential, if successful, to lead to a treatment paradigm shift against this terrible disease. This study was initiated 3 years ago, and so now we are indeed fully the eyes focused on top-line results, not that far away. And Iman will tell more about this. Then our second highlight is in acute lymphoblastic leukemia, more in the specific in ALL patients who developed hypersensitivities to pegylated asparaginase. Progressing, we had positive data, as you know, presented at ASH. We then had a dialogue ongoing with the FDA, met in a pre-BLA meeting in June, after which in July we confirmed our intention to submit a BLA by year-end. This obviously subject to successful completion of remaining tasks as discussed during the pre-BLA meeting. Also in June, no, that was in July, we were pleased that we then were granted the Fast Track designation for the treatment of ALL, and so now the teams are working indeed to the BLA submission before the end of the year. Third highlight, back to pancreatic cancer, but now first line, and a highlight from our IST trial that is ongoing in Georgetown University. The trial completed its first dose of 3 patients already before our previous call. In the meantime, the second dose is fully enrolled, and we are eagerly awaiting the final results on safety. If everything continues to go as we have seen so far, we should be able to determine the MTD shortly. And then, lastly on this slide, the successful financing, 30 million registered direct offering that was done in May, that prolonged our cash way into the second quarter. But also here, I will leave to Eric, who will provide more detail shortly. On the next slide, slide 6, you see all of this summarized in an overview. I will not repeat. You see the check marks, so there are a lot of achievements over the past months, year, and then indeed a concentration of milestones. 2 key ones in the fourth quarter, the phase 3 results and the BLA submission in ALL, but also significant and defining milestones in the coming 12 months or so. I'll stop here, hand over to Iman to provide additional color and detail on our 4 clinical programs and their expected milestone. Iman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gilles. Good morning, United States. Good afternoon, Europe. So I'll provide a quick update and overview on our 3 main indications for ERYP, the pancreatic cancer, triple negative, as well as the ALL indication. So starting at slide number 8, you have seen this slide before. This is our TREBECA-1 slide. TREBECA-1 study, which is ERYP in combination with chemotherapy in second-line advanced pancreatic cancer. As you know, this study is it's our phase 3 pivotal trial, 500 patients, enrolling patients with stage 3 and stage 4 disease with good performance status, and these patients were randomized to receive chemotherapy with or without ERYP. The backbone chemotherapy was a menu of 2, either gem-Abraxane or irinotecan-based chemotherapy. As a pivotal trial, the primary endpoint is overall survival, and we have all expected secondary endpoints, particularly key one is progression-free survival, their investigators' assessment, as well as objective response disease control rate. We'll be looking also at quality of life and safety and biomarkers. The study operationally was actually executed in 11 countries in Europe as well as United States. It's almost over almost 100 sites participating in this trial, and was co-led by Professor Pascal Hamel and Professor Hidalgo in the United States. Just also to remind you of the study plans in terms of the statistical design. So the study is set to look at an improvement in overall survival with a hazard ratio of 0.725 in favor of addition of ERYP treatment. This is based on overall median survival in the control arm of 6 months, and so we're looking at improvement from 6 to roughly 8.3 months in the active arm. So this is the plan for the study. So moving to slide number 9, just give you also a quick highlight what we have done so far. Study completed enrollment end of last year. We ended up with 512 patients in total. We actually were very happy with the study enrollment. This was a major achievement, not only for the company, but of course for the patients who participated in the trial, despite the pandemic that hit all of us back in early 2020. So, which also didn't have a major impact in terms of the enrollment or the quality of the patients participating in this trial. The study had an IDMC on board, and the IDMC met 4 times during the life of the study so far. The first 3 meetings were safety reviews. There were no safety issues. And then the last one was conducted last February of this year, and this was our first and only interim analysis for efficacy, but also safety review. Based on their recommendation, the study continued to final analysis. We are expecting the trial results in the first quarter of this year. I can tell you, are all working day and night to make sure that we have the data cleaning and the results planned as guided to the market. I also wanted to make sure that to confirm that we continue to be blinded to the study. So, and that is, it's a phase 3 trial, and we need to the integrity of the trial. Moving to slide 10, so switching gears, also in the same indication. So this is our investigator-initiated phase 1 study in first-line pancreatic cancer, which is led by Dr. Noel in Georgetown University. So the study is looking to assess the safety and tolerability of ERYP in combination with modified FOLFIRINOX in this setting. FOLFIRINOX is becoming increasingly popular chemotherapy of choice in that setting, and therefore it needs lots of good rationale for us to assess the combinability of our drug with this chemotherapy regimen. And as a phase 1 trial, the primary endpoint is safety and really getting the recommended phase 2 dose for future study in that setting. Studies started beginning of this year, started with a dose cohort of 75 units, actually it's 75 units per kilogram, and just there is a typo there. So as you know, the dose of ERYP, which we are using in our indication, is 100 units per kilogram. So we started with slightly lower dose. There was no DLT observed, and therefore the site, in fact, escalated to the second and final dose cohort, which is 100 units per kilogram. This cohort has already fully enrolled, and we are waiting for the last patient in that cohort to clear for any dose-limiting toxicity. If that is the case, hopefully soon we'll be able to declare our recommended phase 2 dose, which hopefully will be the 100 units per kilogram. So we are expecting these results, again, the confirmation, again, really in the first quarter now of this year. So that covers the pancreatic indications. So moving to slide number 11, we also had a webinar at the beginning of this month where Professor Hidalgo and Dr. Noel participated in that. That was, I believe it was really a good webinar. Lots of questions were addressed, and basically the key outcome of this webinar is that number one, pancreatic cancer continues to be unmet medical need. You know that Onivyde so far is the only approved drug in second-line setting, and also so there is certainly room for new treatments and improving survival in these patients. So moving to slide number 12, so switch gears now to our second indication, which is the triple-negative breast cancer. It's another highly unmet medical need. So we are starting with a proof of concept trial led by Dr. Awada in Jules Bordet in Belgium, in Brussels. And this study is a small randomized trial, 65 patients in total in first and second line setting to assess the clinical activity of ERYP when added to gemcarbo. So far, this trial is a European-only trial, and we have a steering committee that they met, and they actually reviewed the safety profile so far, and again, no issues. Given this is again our first combination, and we did not do a phase 1 trial. So we are expecting our interim data, initial/interim data, in the first half of 2022. Moving to slide 13, so this will be our next indication, ALL, and this is for us a very exciting opportunity for several reasons. Really, it's addressing again another unmet medical need. It's important for the patients who develop hypersensitivity reactions to asparaginase, particularly pegylated asparaginase, which is the standard of care for treating these patients. So ALL indication is based on the NOFO-sponsored study. It was a phase 2 trial that was presented last year at ASH 2020. And in that trial, which enrolled 55 patients in total, patients who have developed hypersensitivity reactions were switched to receive ERYP with the same backbone chemotherapy to be able to complete the intended courses of asparaginase therapy. The trial showed that asparaginase activity was maintained in most, if not all, of those patients with a very good safety profile. More importantly, the convenience of treatment, since ERYP is a drug that is given once every 2 weeks, that provides also a better quality of life, particularly for the pediatric population. With this, it recapped it confirmed our view that we do have an unmet medical need. It's in patients which present about 15 to 20% of this population. While there are 2 drugs approved, Erwinaze, which has suffered long-term supply shortage, but newly approved Rylaze by Jazz, still there is an important need, for a critical need to have an additional option for those patients, and availability at least for the convenience of treatment. So with ERYP, we will end up with 2 administrations per month as compared to 12 to 15 patients. And you can imagine the impact of this number of administrations, particularly if you have a kid 1 year old or 2 years. Also, it's certainly a factor that needs to be considered. The positive news for us so far that we have met with the FDA last June, 3 months ago. This is our pre-BLA meeting, and soon after we have been granted the fast track for ALL, which for us is becoming very important as it helps us in our continuous dialogue with the FDA, and that's really the whole value of fast track designation. We have guided before that we intend to have our submission expected in the fourth quarter, and this will be contingent on our successful completion of all the remaining activities. So with this, I will stop here and then hand over to Eric Sway, our Chief Financial and Operating Officer, who will provide us with the financial update and the news flow. So over to you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Iman. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. We're now moving to slide 15 of that slide deck, reviewing the financial highlights for the first half of this year, and we're starting with P&L information. As you can see, the net loss for the first half of 21 was 28 million euro, and that's down 7 million, minus 20% year over year, with a 6.4 million decrease, minus 18% in operating loss, and a 0.6 million euro increase in financial income. The 6.4 million euro decrease in operating loss was attributable to the 5.6 million decrease in preclinical and clinical development expenses. And of course, that's concurrent with the completion of patient enrollment in the company's phase 3 trial in pancreatic cancer, TRYbeCA-1. Also, a 0.3 million euro decrease in G&A expenses and a 0.4 million euro increase in other income, mostly related to R&D tax credits. The 0.6 million euro increase in financial results was mostly related to foreign currency gains on the US dollar. And now we're moving to the next slide, number 16, for comments on cash. As of June 30, 2021, Erytech had cash and cash equivalents totaling 46.3 million euro, which is approximately $54.9 million, and that's compared with 44.4 million euro, approximately $54.4 million on December 31st last year, and 37.4 million euro on March 31 this year. That's a 1.4 million increase in cash position during the first half of 21, and that was the result of a 32.9 million euro net cash utilization, including 32.6 million in operating activities and 0.3 million in investing activities. Also, a 34.1 million euro generated in financing activities, and that's including a $8 million placement in the US through the company's at-the-market or ATM equity financing program for net proceeds of 6.4 million euro. Also, a $30 million registered direct offering for net proceeds of 22.9 million euro, and the drawdown of 2 tranches under the convertible notes, the OCAPSA program, the financing agreement that was signed with Alpha Blue Ocean in last year, for net proceeds of 5.7 million euro. And finally, we have the variation of the US dollar against the euro, and that led to a 0.7 million euro positive currency exchange impact. Moving to the next slide, 17, with a word on our most recent financing initiatives. You remember that on April 29 this year, we announced a registered direct financing with several healthcare-focused institutional and accredited investors, with a placement of ADSs, American Depository Shares, at $7.25, that's 6.01 euro per ADS, and also associated with a 75% warrant coverage. The 2 warrants have an exercise price of €7.50 per share. This registered direct financing, associated with the 9 OCAPSA tranches that we have called to date, has extended the company's cash horizon to Q2 next year, Q2 2022. This cash horizon could possibly be further extended to Q3 2022 if the company further utilizes the OCAPSA agreement, of course, assuming current market price and, of course, subject to the regulatory limit of 20% dilution. Finally, moving to the next slide, 18, I want to quickly summarize the upcoming P milestones before we'll start the Q&A session. That's, of course, the top-line results for TRYbeCA-1, the phase 3 trial of Erytech in pancreatic cancer. And as explained by Gilles and Iman, we expect those top-line results quite soon in Q4 2021. We also, before the end of the year, have the potential BLA filing of Erytech, that's for hypersensitive patients, of ALL patients. Again, looking forward to potentially filing a BLA dossier before the end of the year. Also, we'll have the determination of the MTD, the maximum tolerated dose in RESPECT, the phase 1 trial in first-line pancreatic cancer, also before the end of the year. And then towards the first half of next year, we look forward to potential BLA filing for Erytech in second-line pancreatic cancer, following the top-line results of TRYbeCA-1, and also the initial data from the phase 2 trial in breast cancer, the current ongoing TRYbeCA-2 trial, and that's also expected in the first half of 22. With that, I would like to thank you already for your attention, and we'll now open the call for any questions you may have. Again, I will dare repeating myself and reminding any of you who would like to ask questions in French that you are, of course, very welcome to do so. Nous allons maintenant ouvrir la session de questions-réponses, et bien entendu, pour ceux d'entre vous qui préféreraient poser leurs questions en français, c'est tout à fait possible, et évidemment, nous aurons plaisir d'échanger en français si vous le préférez. Operator, Liz, that's now over to you.
If you'd like to ask a question at this time, please press the star, then the number 1 key on your touchtone telephone. That is star, then 1 if you'd like to ask a question. Again, please press star, then 1 if you'd like to ask a question. We have a question from Boris Peaker with Cowen.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Boris. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you? A question that comes up frequently is, how does the patient enrollment in your pivotal pancreatic cancer compare to the phase 2 study in terms of geography, age, or any other characteristics, as well as any kind of follow-up care differences?
I'll leave this to Iman to answer.
Hi, good morning, Boris. So compared to the phase 1 to the phase 2 trials, the overall patient characteristics they are highly similar to what we have in terms of the inclusion-exclusion criteria. The real difference here is, which we don't believe is going to have any impact, is the phase 2 trial was a French-only study, whereas the pivotal trial naturally was a global trial in Europe and United States. So that is just the geographical difference. France remained still our highest enrolling country in the phase 3 trial, followed by Spain. So with that in mind, we actually compared to the phase 2 trial, if you remember, most patients received FOLFIRINOX or FOLFIRI or FOLFOX in the first line, so almost 90% of our patients in the second line were gemcitabine-based therapy. In the phase 3 trial, that we expecting also to have more patients receiving gem-Abraxane in the second line. It's not going to be 90%. I think it probably will be 2/3 to 1/3. But that's what will be the difference. We have, 2 webinars, and it's actually the same view from Professor Hidalgo, which confirms also our view, which is we don't believe that the backbone chemotherapy will make really much of a difference in terms of the activity of ASPAS in combination with either choices. But otherwise, for example, performance status is the same. Of course, progression after first-line therapy, and many other inclusion-exclusion criteria, virtually the same.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and we all look forward to the big data reveal. Thanks for taking my question.
Thank you, Boris.
And I'm not showing any further questions at this time.
I think then, if no further question, I think we must have been very, very clear. And so I want to thank you all for your attention, for your continued support. And as Boris said, it's now indeed looking forward to the data in the next quarter to come. So we'll obviously keep you posted as always. And in the meantime, we wish you a great day and great afternoon in Europe. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.